A group of people want to say sorry to you. The guilt is terrifying them. They can't even face you. There is something quietly unfolding behind the scenes, and if you have felt a strange shift lately, this message may explain why. Somewhere, a group of people who once felt completely certain about their choices are no longer carrying that same confidence. The thoughts that used to justify their actions have become much harder to hold on to. What seemed simple to them before now feels complicated, and what they brushed aside has returned to their minds again and again. The surprising part is that while you may have been focused on healing, growing, and moving forward with your life, they have been looking back. Not because someone forced them to, but because time has a way of revealing truths that emotions once concealed. Stay with this, because there is something deeper happening than you may realize. You may not know how many moments your silence has spoken louder than words ever could. While others expected reactions, explanations, or attempts to prove yourself, you chose a different path. Perhaps it was not easy. Perhaps there were nights when you replayed conversations in your head and wondered why certain things happened the way they did. Yet even during those moments, something inside you kept moving forward. That quiet strength created a contrast they were not prepared for. Instead of seeing you become bitter, they watched you continue. Instead of seeing you lose yourself, they slowly noticed that you were becoming more grounded. Sometimes people only understand the weight of their actions when they see the person they affected refuse to become defined by the pain. For some of them, the realization arrived gradually. It came during ordinary days, unexpected memories, and random moments when your name crossed their mind. They remembered details they once overlooked. They remembered conversations they did not fully appreciate at the time. More importantly, they began seeing your intentions more clearly than they ever had before. What they once misunderstood now feels obvious. What they once dismissed now feels valuable. There is a certain kind of discomfort that appears when people recognize that someone gave them sincerity while they responded with confusion, distance, or poor judgment. It is not a dramatic feeling. It is often quiet, persistent, and impossible to ignore. The reason this matters is not because you need anyone's apology to become whole. Your journey was never meant to depend on another person's acknowledgement. Yet there is an unseen connection between growth and realization. As you changed, they were changing too. As you learned lessons, they were being confronted by lessons of their own. Somewhere inside them, a conversation has begun that they can no longer avoid. They are starting to understand what your presence meant, what your kindness carried, and what was lost when they failed to see it. Don't miss what comes next, because this is only the beginning of a story that reaches much deeper than regret alone. A quiet truth has been following them wherever they go, and no matter how busy life becomes, it keeps finding its way back into their thoughts. What makes this so significant is that the realization did not arrive all at once. It appeared in small pieces, like scattered fragments of a picture slowly coming together. At first, they noticed little things. Then they noticed patterns. Eventually, they began seeing the full image. The person they once thought they understood was never exactly who they imagined. The version of you they carried in their minds was incomplete, shaped by assumptions and limited perspectives. Now, as time creates distance, clarity is taking its place. There is something important here, because clarity often arrives long after opportunities have passed. Many of them have replayed certain moments more times than they would ever admit. They remember conversations they ended too quickly. They remember situations where they judged without fully listening. They remember occasions when your intentions were genuine, yet they interpreted them through their own fears, insecurities, or misunderstandings. What surprises them most is not simply what happened. It is the realization of what could have been different. Human beings often move through life assuming there will always be another chance to understand someone later. Yet later has a way of revealing how valuable a moment truly was. The more they reflect, the more they recognize the patience, sincerity, and emotional depth that you quietly carried. Meanwhile, your own journey has continued whether they were watching or not. You may not always recognize how much you have changed because growth rarely announces itself. It happens in the decisions you make, the boundaries you learn to respect, the peace you slowly create within yourself, and the way you carry experiences that once felt impossible to bear. While they were slowly uncovering their understanding of the past, you were becoming someone stronger than you were before. This creates a powerful contrast. They are looking backward with new awareness, while you have been learning how to move forward with greater wisdom. That difference is impossible for them to ignore now. What makes their feelings difficult is that they are not only reflecting on what happened to you, they are also reflecting on who they became during those moments. Sometimes the hardest realization is not discovering that someone else deserved better treatment. The hardest realization is recognizing that you failed to offer the version of yourself that you wish you had shown. That awareness can create hesitation, uncertainty, and a deep desire to make peace with the past. Stay with this, because the emotions building inside them are becoming harder to keep hidden, and the next layer of this story reveals why facing you feels far more difficult than they ever expected. What they are struggling with now is not simply regret. Regret is a feeling that comes and goes, but what they are experiencing reaches much deeper. It touches their sense of self. Somewhere along the way, they began asking themselves questions they never expected to face. Why did they overlook someone who genuinely cared? Why did they allow assumptions to become stronger than understanding? Why did they fail to recognize the value of a connection when it was right in front of them? These questions do not disappear easily. They return during quiet evenings, during long drives, during moments when distractions fade and honesty becomes impossible to avoid. The answers they discover are not always comfortable, yet they keep searching because part of them knows that avoiding the truth will not bring them peace. The difficult part is that they can see your growth now more clearly than ever before. They notice how your energy feels different. They notice a calmness that comes from lessons learned through experience. Even if they have not spoken to you directly, there is an awareness that you are no longer standing in the same emotional place where they left you. Time has changed you, but not in the way they expected. Instead of becoming closed off, you became more aware. Instead of carrying every wound forever, you slowly transformed those experiences into wisdom. This realization creates mixed emotions inside them because it forces them to understand that while you may still remember the past, you are no longer trapped inside it. For some of them, this understanding has created a surprising amount of hesitation. They imagine what it would feel like to stand in front of you and acknowledge everything they have finally realized. Yet the thought alone makes them uneasy, not because they expect anger, but because they are uncertain whether they deserve your attention anymore. They wonder if too much time has passed. They wonder if their words would even matter now. Most of all, they wonder how it would feel to look into the eyes of someone they once misunderstood and admit that they were wrong. There is something humbling about that moment, even before it happens. It requires a level of honesty that many people spend years avoiding. At the center of all this is a lesson that reaches beyond any single relationship or situation. Sometimes life places people in our path for reasons we do not fully understand at the time. Their value becomes visible only after distance creates perspective. The group of people carrying these thoughts has reached that point. They are beginning to understand that your presence left a mark on their lives in ways they never recognized before. Don't miss what comes next, because the emotional weight they have been carrying is about to reveal something even more meaningful than an apology. It is revealing a deeper understanding of who you truly are and the impact you have had all along. What makes this moment so meaningful is that their understanding is no longer based on memory alone. It is based on comparison. They have met new people, experienced different situations, and walked through seasons of life that challenged their assumptions. Through all of it, they kept finding themselves thinking back to you, not because you were perfect, but because certain qualities are rare. Authenticity is rare. Loyalty is rare. The ability to care deeply without expecting constant recognition is rare. Over time, they began noticing that what they once considered ordinary about you was actually extraordinary. The realization arrived quietly, but once it settled in, it changed the way they viewed the entire story. There are moments when they hear someone speak, and it reminds them of a conversation they once had with you. There are moments when they witness kindness, and suddenly remember something you did long ago. These memories appear without invitation, yet they continue showing up because your influence never disappeared completely. Sometimes people believe that impact only comes from dramatic events, but that is rarely true. More often, impact comes from small moments that leave lasting impressions. A kind word spoken at the right time, patience offered when it was needed most, understanding given without judgment. These are the things that remain in people's hearts, long after the moment itself has passed. They are finally beginning to see just how much of that you carried. At the same time, there is a growing awareness inside them that an apology is not only about saying the right words. It is about accepting responsibility for what those words represent. That realization has made them slow down. They do not want to offer something shallow or rushed. Deep down, they know that genuine accountability requires reflection. It requires honesty. It requires the courage to admit that another person deserved better understanding than they received. For some of them, this process has become emotional because they are confronting parts of themselves they had ignored for a long time. The lessons they are learning are not only about you, they are also about the people they want to become moving forward. Meanwhile, your role in this story continues to be different from theirs. While they are looking inward and sorting through unfinished emotions, you have been creating space for peace. You've been learning that your worth was never dependent on whether others recognized it immediately. That truth has become one of your greatest strengths. Stay with this, because the next part reaches the heart of why these people feel such a strong pull toward making things right. Their desire to apologize is connected to something much deeper than guilt. It is connected to the realization that your presence taught them lessons they may never forget. What many of them have finally come to understand is that your value was never tied to the opinions that surrounded you. For a long time, they viewed you through conversations, assumptions, and impressions that were incomplete. Now those old viewpoints have begun to fall away. What remains is something much more honest. They see a person who continued showing kindness even when it was not always returned. They see someone who carried disappointment without allowing it to define their future. Most importantly, they see someone who kept moving forward instead of becoming trapped by the actions of others. That realization has created a deep respect that did not exist before, and it is impossible for them to ignore. There is also another reason these feelings have become so strong. As people mature, they begin recognizing parts of themselves that once operated without awareness. They start noticing the moments when pride spoke louder than understanding. They recognize times when they listened to outside voices instead of trusting their own judgment. For this group, many of those realizations lead directly back to you. The more they reflect, the more they understand that some of their choices were influenced by perspectives that did not reflect the full truth. Looking back now, they can see how different things might have been if they had taken the time to understand you, instead of assuming they already did. What surprises them most is how much your absence has taught them. Sometimes people only appreciate the significance of a connection after it is no longer part of their daily life. Without realizing it, they began measuring other interactions against the sincerity they once received from you. They noticed how rare genuine support can be. They noticed how uncommon it is to encounter someone who brings calmness rather than complication. Little by little, these comparisons created a deeper understanding. They started recognizing qualities that were present all along, but hidden beneath distractions and misunderstandings. There is something important here because this awareness did not come from anyone convincing them. It came from experience itself. Now they find themselves standing at an emotional crossroads. One path asks them to remain silent and carry their reflections privately. The other asks them to acknowledge what they have learned and accept responsibility for the past. Neither choice feels easy. Yet the longer they sit with these thoughts, the more they realize that honesty creates a kind of freedom that avoidance never can. Their hearts are moving toward a place of openness, even if they have not yet found the perfect words. Don't miss what comes next, because the final chapter of this message is not about their guilt or their regret. It is about the peace, clarity, and quiet strength that have been growing within you throughout this entire journey. Perhaps the most beautiful part of this entire story is not what they have discovered about you, but what you have discovered about yourself. Through every misunderstanding, every unanswered question, and every moment when you felt unseen, you continued becoming the person you were meant to be. Growth often happens so quietly that we fail to notice it while it is taking place. Yet if you look back carefully, you may realize how much stronger your heart has become, how much wiser your perspective is, and how much more peace you carry than before. The journey was never easy, but it shaped something valuable inside you that no one can take away. The people reflecting on the past are learning their own lessons, and those lessons belong to them. Whether they eventually find the words they want to say, or whether some of those thoughts remain unspoken, the deeper truth remains the same. Their realization does not create your worth. Their understanding does not define your value. Those things already existed long before anyone recognized them. What their reflection reveals is simply that truth has a way of becoming visible with time. Sometimes it takes distance. Sometimes it takes experience. Sometimes it takes seeing life from a completely different perspective. But eventually, Sincerity has a way of being seen for what it truly is. There is a quiet spiritual beauty in that. Not because anyone is being rewarded or corrected, but because understanding creates healing. When people become honest with themselves, something begins to soften inside them. Old assumptions lose their power. Old misunderstandings begin to fade. New compassion takes their place. The same process that is happening within them has also been happening within you. While they learned the value of appreciation, you learned the value of self-respect. While they learned the importance of understanding others, you learned the importance of trusting your own path. In different ways, everyone involved has been growing, even when it was invisible. So if this message found you today, let it leave you with a sense of calm rather than expectation. Let it remind you that the impact you have on others is often greater than you realize. Let it remind you that kindness, patience, and authenticity never disappear simply because they are overlooked for a season. They leave impressions that time often reveals. As you move forward, carry no burden from the past and no need to prove anything to anyone. The chapter ahead is not about seeking validation. It is about embracing the person you have become. And that person, shaped by experience and strengthened by growth, is already enough exactly as they are.